Imperialdramon is one of my favorite decks that first made its appearance in Special Booster 1.5. And even in Japan, Imperialdramon is still in the competitive scene, especially with all the Collector's Edition support. Hey guys, DIGI-PANDA back with another deck profile video for the BT5 meta, and in today's episode, I'm covering Imperialdramon, and what I've been playtesting with, and why. I'll go with the card by card, and also what cards help in what matchups. As always, this deck has been tested against everything, from Token Diaboromon all the way up to Green-Yellow Rush. With that, let's get started. This deck runs 5 level 2s, 14 level 3s, 11 level 4s, 8 level 5s, 6 level 6s, 2 level 7s, 5 option cards, and 4 tamers. You'll find a lot of one-ofs in the deck, in addition to cards you probably don't see in some builds. For level 2s, I run 1 Upamon and 4 Veemon. Upamon is generically going to be either your primary baby for most blue decks, or the baby that takes up the 5th slot. This is generally because Upamon nets you a card when attacking, if your opponent has no Digivolution sources on their Digimon. Against Rookie Rush type decks, this effect will almost always go off. As for Veemon, he is your primary baby in this deck, because Imperialdramon and its other evolution pieces are jammers, meaning that you don't need to meet some condition on your opponent's board. For level 3s, I run 3 copies of BT1 Egman, 2 copies of BT2 Veemon, 4 copies of BT3 Veemon, 3 copies of Sayakomon, and 2 copies of Starter Deck Gomamon. Egman and Gomamon are your generic 2-cost level 3s that are just cheap to play outright. Sayakomon is primarily in the deck to prevent your opponent from reducing Digivolution costs. This includes cards like Mega Digimon Fusion and Hidden Potential Discovered. BT2 Veemon is relevant for card draw, especially if evoed all the way into Imperialdramon with a Imperialdramon as an evolution source. By restanding itself, I can draw another card as well. Last but not least, 4 BT3 Veemon because he's my primary attacker. However, there's no X Veemon in the deck, which we'll get into in a little bit. For level 4s, I run 2 Gorillamon, 1 Tabuimon, 3 Lobomon, 4 Coelomon, and 1 Grizzlymon. 2 Gorillamon is important because this is one of your 1-cost evos that dodges Nidhoggmon. Tobiomon is similar, but I only run copy because between it and Coelomon, I prefer maxing out Coelomon for a blocker capability. And even with 4 blockers, I thought 1 Grizzlymon would also be helpful, having seen other individuals' decks that incorporated between 4 to 5 blockers. Lobomon is also important because of the number of blue tamers I run. Keep in mind, if I have Imperialdramon on the field, that's 1 to 2 attacks, depending on if Imperialdramon is an evolution source. Lobomon is another attack if I have the memory to go into it, or the Blitz Omni for the last attack. As for X Veemon, the purpose of restanding Veemon used to be good, but now it's important to build up quickly because many decks have ways to hit your level 5s and lower, whether it's by destruction or DP depletion effects. For level 5s, I run the standard 8 ultimates with 4 Imperialdramon and 4 Beemon. One major difference with this deck and previous iterations is you'll want to consider what level 5 to play. Nidhoggmon can only be accessed from Beemon, but it can be a board sweeper, which is something that this deck never had. Both Imperialdramon and Beemon are mandatory for Imperialdramon decks, because they reduce Imperialdramon's evolution cost by 3. Keep in mind though that this can be blocked by Gaussmon, Sayakomon, and Cutemon. For level 6s, I run 4 Imperialdramon Dragon Mode and 2 Nidhoggmon. Imperialdramon is the primary attacker for this deck. In most decks, you may notice that decks will run 4 primary level 6s, and then a secondary level 6 at 2 or 3 copies. In some instances, you may see this at 8 or 10, but that's because the level 6s interact with one another. These will typically be cases with Ragna Lordmon and with the new Shoutmon DX deck. Now back to Imperialdramon. Imperialdramon has an amazing ability to restand all your jammers. However, not only are Imperialdramon and Beemon jammers, but Imperialdramon himself as well. In a given turn, if you swing with Imperialdramon, you have jamming, meaning that the only thing that will probably delete him is a poorly timed Gaia Force, or an Ultimate Flare, or even a Hammer Spark that pushes it to your opponent's turn. But if none of these happen and it's just a Digimon, jammed. If your memory is set to 3 from Davis, you can Digivolve Imperialdramon to Imperialdramon after the first attack. This will restand Imperialdramon because Imperialdramon is a jammer, and you can attack again. But when you attack with Imperialdramon again, jamming helps prevent the deletion of this Digimon. With Imperialdramon's inheritable, you'll be able to restand your Digimon and go for another attack. In a typical Imperialdramon deck, you'll be able to go for 3 security checks off 1 Imperialdramon plus Digivolution. Nidhoggmon is primarily in the deck to provide you safety against certain decks. Yellow-Green Rush is one of the best decks in the format, not only for its ability to play many small bodies, but the fact that it runs many ways to delete your Digimon by DP depletion. Nidhoggmon also serves another purpose, but more on that when we get to Tamers. With Battle of Omni, Omnimon with the Blitz mechanic has made red and blue decks even more aggressive. Remember that play where I mentioned Imperialdramon checking potentially 3 security? Omnimon makes it 4. So if early game knocked your opponent of 2 security, this Omnimon can blitz for game. In addition, so what if you hit Gaia Force or some option card that deletes Omnimon? Omnimon has an effect that prevents it from being deleted or sent back to the hand or deck by trashing a level 6 Digimon. Moving into option cards, I run 3 Hammer Sparks and 2 Needle Spray. Some people may argue, why not 4 Hammer Sparks? Honestly, it all came down to space. Hammer Sparks are helpful as traps in my security, but also help me pump that extra memory if I need it to play Lobomon for a game, or Evo into Imperialdramon if I'm just 1 memory short. Hammer Sparks will also dodge the new memory Digimon in BT5, in the form of Gaussmon, Sayakomon, and Cutemon, but still be hindered by Terriermon, Chewmon, and Gazimon from previous sets. Unlike Red, Blue has little ways to remove blockers, and with jamming attackers, you'll want to get in clean for the attack. With Needle Spray, you can tap down a blocker, and even better, if it's checked in the security, you get to play it and add it to your hand. Finally, I run 4 memory tamers in the form of 3 Davis Motomiya and 1 Mimi Tachikawa. Davis Motomiya is standard in Imperialdramon decks, adding 1 blue and 1 green card when played to supplement your evolution sequences. You may add Lobos for that final push for game, or even that Nidhoggmon to board wipe your opponent. Mimi is my personal tech choice because it makes Needle Spray active at all times. However, it also works in conjunction with Nidhoggmon very well. Even after a Nidhogg board wipe, on my next turn I can raise a new egg and push it out immediately with Mimi's effect. Even at 3 memory, I can raise, Evo to Rookie, push out with Mimi's effect, then put a Lobomon on a Davis for 3 potential attackers. Keep in mind, some decks may run 3 Tamers, some may run 4, but not limit it to just Davis and Mimi. Dan Vong's first place build ran a Sora and Joe Tamer card as well. And that's Imperialdramon. There are many ways to build this deck, and a variety of ways to do it. You'll find this deck stands closer to higher tier, with Lord Nightmon and Yellow-Green Rush. However, RNG will ultimately decide your fate of whether you win or lose. Against other decks, security control can give this deck problems, especially because you aren't building wide. In playtesting against Red Omni Control, I found that with destruction effects, it suffered greatly, losing its smaller bodies to Alterus, and goes into danger against X Antibody. Nidhoggmon, however, can handle X Antibody. Blue Omnimon aggro, it becomes a race, but Nidhogg controls the board. Against Token Diaboromon, there's no problems, especially with the amount of setup that's needed. What do you think of Imperialdramon and its viability into even BT7? Let me know in the comments below, and leave a like and sub if this type of content interests you. With the boom of my channel in recent weeks, I reached my 250 subscriber goal before the end of the year. With such a boom, I honestly don't think Red Gaia decks can cut it for the next giveaway. What are your thoughts? I'll also be on livestream with the Egman this Friday, 6 PM Central for some BT5 deck testing. And I'll be bringing my arsenal of decks for the fun. Thank you all for your feedback, and I look forward to the next video. This is DIGI-PANDA. Logging out.